What if the one person you trusted most made your classroom a crime scene? These are the shocking accounts of teachers who went from educating their students to doing horrible things. There's a media coordinator who persuaded a teenager to murder someone and a teacher who shot up a session with other teachers. Get ready to be amazed at the ugly truths of these plain-looking teachers. You will not believe how their lives went downhill in strange ways. Prepare to be shocked at the ugly truth about evil teachers who turned classrooms into crime scenes. Number 1. Pamela Smart. Let's consider the case of Pamela Smart, a woman who made headlines for a crime. In 1990, she was only 22 years old, fresh out of school, and working as a media coordinator at Winnicott High School in New Hampshire. While not a teacher, her job entailed working very closely with students and helping with school news programs and media. She was professional and friendly, and therefore, students and faculty members liked having her around. But beneath that gleaming surface, a very sinister tale was unfolding. Pamela had just wed her high school sweetheart, Greg Smart. But their marriage soon ran into problems. Greg was allegedly cheating on her, and Pamela, feeling neglected, began an affair of her own. But this wasn't with another adult. This was with a 15-year-old student named Billy Flynn. Billy was young and easily influenced and soon fell in love with Pamela. She preyed on that, deliberately engineering a situation in which he became emotionally and sexually invested in her. Things got serious fast. Pamela didn't just want to have an affair, she wanted to leave her marriage. She started telling Billy that if only Greg were gone, they could be together. It started as just talk, but soon that became action. Greg returned from work on May 1st, 1990. Upon arrival at home, he was greeted by two of Billy's friends. One of the friends was armed with a gun, and they forced Greg to kneel before shooting him in the head. Pamela ensured she was not around. She attended a school meeting to create an excuse. But the scheme fell apart. Within weeks, one of the other conspirators confessed to the crime and implicated Billy, and Pamela was drawn into the picture. Billy testified at the trial that Pamela had encouraged him to murder Greg, instructing him to prove his love by doing so. Pamela claimed that she was unaware of the murder and that Billy acted on it out of jealousy. Despite her denial, the jury found her guilty. Perhaps the most important evidence was a secretly taped interview with a fellow student, Pamela, who appeared upset and avoiding questions when answering questions, indicating that she was attempting to conceal something. In 1991, Pamela Smart was found guilty of first-degree murder, plotting a murder, and interfering with a witness, and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Pamela's story gained notoriety in the press, leading to documentaries, TV shows, and a Hollywood movie, To Die For, featuring Nicole Kidman. Although there have been several appeals, Pamela is still in prison today. Billy Flynn, the teenager she manipulated, was released in 2015 after serving time. Pamela Smart will, however, spend the rest of her life in prison. Number 2. Amy Bishop. Amy Bishop, a Harvard-educated professor of biology, shot people at a University of Alabama at Huntsville faculty meeting on February 12, 2010. She killed 3 of her colleagues and shot 3 others. The assault stunned the academic world and had everyone asking, how could someone so highly respected and well-educated do something so terrible? At first glance, Amy appeared to be an ideal case of a successful individual. She had earned her PhD, spent years as a researcher, and was a professor who taught students. She even had a family, 4 kids, a husband, and a life others would envy. But hidden under the accolades and success was a woman who, in her own words, had been wrong. It had been weeks since she was denied tenure, which really angered her. Tenure was not just a title, but security, respect, and freedom in her field. It was everything to Amy. She believed she had earned it, and the department had made a gigantic mistake by not giving it to her. Denial of tenure would be a turning point. In a normal faculty meeting, surrounded by people she had worked with for years, Amy stood up, pulled out a 9mm pistol, and began firing. Dr. Gopi Podila, the department head, was the first to be killed. He was instantly killed. Amy then shot Dr. Maria Ragland Davis and Dr. Adriel Johnson, 2 highly respected professors. They too were killed. Within minutes, there were 3 dead bodies, and Amy's rampage did not end there. She also injured 2 others, including Dr. Joseph Lee, who was severely injured. But the terror was short-lived. Amy's gun jammed. Several of the other school staff members took advantage of the moment, running over to her and overpowering her until the police could get there. Amy was taken into custody in the blood-soaked area, and the gun was retrieved from the floor. As the investigation continued, it was discovered that Amy had a history of violence. In 1986, she had stabbed her 18-year-old brother Seth to death in a fight. Initially, it was ruled an accident. But in 2010, when the case was reopened, it was determined that the initial investigation was poorly conducted. Although too much time had lapsed for her to be prosecuted, this raised further questions about Amy's history. There was even an incident in 1993 when Amy had been linked to a pipe bomb sent to her former employer, but she was never prosecuted. Her colleagues considered her quick-tempered and argumentative. She was also called easily angered, hard-nosed, and difficult to work with. No one could have thought that she could have been so brutal. Amy Bishop received a life without parole prison term term in 2012 for killing someone and attempting to kill someone else. Amy is currently incarcerated at the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Alabama. Number 3. Melissa Huckabee. Melissa Huckabee seemed like the last person anyone would suspect of committing such a horrible crime. She was a mother, a Sunday school teacher, and a well-liked member of society. However, in March 2009, she stunned the world by doing something extremely cruel that shocked the entire town of Tracy, California. Melissa Cantu, her 5-year-old daughter, and her pastor grandfather resided in Orchard Estates, a peaceful mobile home community. Sandra Cantu, a happy and outgoing 8-year-old girl, lived a couple of houses down. She was said to always be energetic and have a big smile. Sandra was done with school and playing outside and was last seen skipping down the street at approximately 4 p.m. on March 27th. This was the last time Sandra was alive. When Sandra didn't come home for dinner, her family reported her missing. The whole town was in an uproar. There was a massive search for Sandra, but no one could find her. Then Melissa Huckabee, a worried town resident, jumped into action. She talked to the press, cried, and even reported a stolen suitcase around the time Sandra went missing. She also handed over an unusual note detailing Sandra's whereabouts. All seemed to be proceeding normally at first, but everything changed when a farm worker found a suitcase floating in an irrigation pond on April 6th. Inside, tragically, was Sandra's body. She had been assaulted, smothered, and strangled. The suitcase matched the one Melissa had claimed was stolen. As the investigation went on, disturbing testimony emerged. Melissa's car was seen on security cameras leaving the mobile home park when Sandra went missing, returning hours later, and Melissa was also seen on camera entering the church where she worked with a large object resembling a suitcase. Police also discovered blood spots and a twisted rolling pin at the church, the same as Sandra's injuries. Melissa was arrested and charged with rape, murder, and kidnapping on April 10th. The whole community was shocked. How could someone so trusted commit such a horrible crime? Melissa's reason for doing what she did is not known, but her history of emotional struggles, including bipolar disorder, could be a factor. She entered a plea of guilty to murder in 2010 and was sentenced to life in prison without the option of parole. The community was shocked, wondering the same heartbreaking question: how could someone who was part of their community do this? Number 4. Barbara Opel. Barbara Opel wasn't really a killer. She was a divorced mother of 3 who was barely scraping by as a caregiver on the outskirts of Everett suburbs in Washington. But then, in 2001, she arranged for one of the most surprising murders ever committed in the state. And it wasn't so much the brutality of the crime that shocked people, but who she had committed it. 3 teenagers, including her own daughter. The victim, Jerry Heeman, was a 64-year-old retired aerospace engineer dying of terminal cancer. He required care, so Barbara was employed as a live-in caretaker. She and her kids occupied the basement, and Barbara was soon integrated into Jerry's household, caring for his elderly mother, doing errands, and paying bills. Everything was normal to the rest of the world. Behind closed doors, though, Barbara was plotting. When Jerry sold some real estate and received more than $40,000 in cash, Barbara wanted the money for herself. But rather than steal it, she arranged for something far darker. She paid a group of teens to murder Jerry for her. She explained to them that Jerry was cruel, deserved it, and promised to pay them $2,000 each. A car, a dirt bike, and for her own 13-year-old daughter Heather, her approval and respect. On April 13th, 2001, Barbara sent some teenagers with baseball bats and knives to Jerry's bedroom as he was recuperating from surgery. They beat and stabbed him brutally. The attack was horrific, and Jerry didn't die immediately. While bleeding, Barbara helped cover up the crime. In the course of the next 2 days, they put his body in blankets, put him in the trunk of a car, and buried him in a shallow grave on the Tulalip Indian Reservation, approximately 40 miles north of Seattle. Meanwhile, Jerry's older mother was left behind in the home. She was not found until days later, weak and dehydrated. She had lived on paper, as some reports. As the police started questioning, Barbara fabricated a tale of deception, informing the police that Jerry had left for a trip and did not wish to be contacted. However, ultimately, the truth came out. The teens admitted that they were manipulated or persuaded by promises of money and fame, and Heather allegedly even laughed after the killing. Barbara was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. She was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of release. She is currently serving time in the Washington Correction Center for Women. Most horrifying in this instance, however, is less the violence and more how Barbara used her daughter and a group of teens to carry out her cold-blooded plan. Number 5. Dana Rivers. Dana Rivers was once a symbol of progress, famed for being fired as a high school teacher in the late 90s after coming out as transgender. She was hailed as a civil rights icon. But nearly 2 decades later, Rivers made headlines again, not for standing up to injustice, but for a brutal triple murder. On the 11th of November, 2016, in Oakland, California, Rivers attacked the family of Charlotte Reed and her wife, Patricia Wright. The couple were invited in Rivers to spend the night, but something was wrong. Rivers, a friend of Reed who was part of a biker group, was angry when Reed left. That sense of betrayal triggered the violence that followed. At midnight, Rivers initiated a vicious assault. Charlotte was stabbed over 40 times. Patricia was stabbed and shot. Rivers shot their 19-year-old son, Benny, to death when he attempted to flee. She dragged their bodies, doused the garage with gasoline, and attempted to set it on fire, presumably to burn evidence. The fire did not spread. The neighbors had also heard gunshots and strange noises and called the police. The police, upon arrival, found the body of Benny outside and Rivers coming out of the garage, bloodied and smelling of gasoline. She had a weapon in her hand and did not try to run. She was arrested on the spot. The public was shocked. The activist who had fought for justice was now a convicted killer. Rivers was put on trial after long delays in the legal system in late 2022. Prosecutors told the court the murder was cold and planned, motivated by personal anger. Rivers' lawyers claim she had mental illness issues, but she was declared sane at the time of the murders. In January 2023, Rivers received a life sentence in prison without parole. Today, she resides in a high-security prison, far from the prominent figure she once was. That's all for today. What do you guys think? It's amazing and surprising, right? Have you heard of any of these cases before? Let me know down in the comments below and let's discuss. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more awesome stories. See you in the next video.